In the last 10 years, Nigeria's fuel production has declined by nearly 20%, with the country averaging around 1.5 to 1.7 million barrels per day. The drop in production signals a revenue loss of more than $60 billion within the past decade and significantly affecting Nigeria's crude reserve and foreign exchange earnings. With oil sitting as Nigeria's major export, having a near-perfect oil production sector is important. However, oil bunkering, large-scale oil theft, and corruption have dealt Nigeria a blow. In 2022, the NNPC discovered an oil loss of 600,000 barrels per day through an illegal oil terminal that operated from the Forcados terminal. Yet, that was only one of many channels through which oil is stolen from Nigeria. According to the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI, Nigeria lost more than 600 million barrels of oil to thieves between 2009 and 2020, leading to financial and economic losses amounting to 16.25 trillion naira. Now, joining me tonight in Politics HQ, I have Madam Annkio Briggs. She is the convener of the Niger Delta Self-Determination Movement. A warm welcome to you, madam, and thanks for honoring our invitation on Politics HQ.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
Good evening. Now, as a foremost environmentalist and Niger Delta activist, what were your initial thoughts and concerns regarding the recent interception of a foreign vessel with stolen crude oil in the Niger Delta region? How does this, and its subsequent destruction, how does this impact the local environment and communities?
Well, definitely the fact that some people have been caught and apprehended, that is a welcome news. It is always a welcome news when people are caught in the process of oil theft, because we know that oil theft in the Niger Delta is an organized cabal stroke, if you like, oil theft mafia. If we recall, in about 2004 or thereabout, a ship was caught stealing loaded with crude oil, not as much as this one, and some naval high-ranking naval personnel were found guilty, and Admiral Bob Manuel was acquitted of all charges. So this is a very long-term activity that has been going on. We've been saying this for a very, very long time. Now, when it comes to the issue of the environment, the destruction of the environment is also a long-term issue, has been a long-term issue. From the exploring and drilling of oil and gas, our areas, our waters, our livelihood has been totally devastated, destroyed for a very, very long time. The oil companies, they are the ones exploring, so they are culpable. And of course, the federal government that has promised to give us a safe environment by the Constitution is also a partner in this. So what the Niger Delta people suffer when it comes to the environment, we have sometimes described it as environmental terrorism. The Niger Delta region is one of the most polluted regions that explore for oil and gas, if not the most polluted.
So sorry to interrupt you, madam, and that brings me to this question. So the security services catch a vessel that is laden with stolen crude oil, and they intercepted this vessel, set it ablaze, it was bombed, and it's meant to act as a deterrent. Does this not further contribute to this environmental degradation that you've spoken about? What's the rationale behind setting the vessel ablaze?
I mean, the claim is that it will act as a deterrent. Well, if it were any other thing, and maybe any other thing in different circumstances, that may be right, because you also need to deter
Yes.
people from the continued stealing of the resources in the Niger Delta. But when that deterrent is now affecting the environment, to release that level, that amount of crude oil into the creeks of the Niger Delta, it may deter the people that have stolen it, but the cost, the price that the Niger Delta region will pay for the next 20 to 30 years is what is not acceptable. So others have described the the destroying of anything that has been caught as destruction of evidence, as a waste of resources, because they could easily lift the crude oil out of the vessel. They might as well just lift it, suck it out of the vessel, take it into another vessel. It may take a while, but it can be done. And so what we're saying is that nobody is complaining or quarreling about the fact that these thieves are caught. What we're quarreling about is the spilling of the content of what is in that vessel into the creeks, yes, into the creeks of the Niger Delta. Mind you, I mean, like we've been told that there is an emergency of food, food security declared, that the government has declared food security. Well, if the government has declared food security on one hand, and it is spilling this much oil into our source of food, it begins to defeat the purpose.
It's counterproductive.
Begins to defeat itself, because then where is the food security for us in the Niger Delta? We mainly eat off of the what comes out of the water and the swamps and things like that. So definitely our livelihood is being destroyed, and of course our source of food is also being destroyed, and the government have to take responsibility for this.
Now,
Bombing
yes.
a ship is not, we're not at war. Definitely the Niger Delta region is not at war. We're not the people that stole the oil. The people that stole this particular oil are somewhere outside of the Niger Delta. And so if any deterrent is going to be given, the people that should suffer from that deterrent should be the people
absolutely. Absolutely.
not the Niger Delta people. And so that's the argument, that's the discussion.
Now, Madam, in your opening statement, you did give an overview of some history of this sort of theft. It's definitely not the first, and a lot of people might be confident to say, we're still going to discover more of this. In the recent past, we've seen some discoveries of stolen crude and, terminals, illegal terminals that siphoned this crude from pipelines. In your opinion, and based on your experience and understanding of the geography, and also being someone that is very involved, someone that's from that region, what comprehensive measures should be implemented to prevent the illegal sourcing of crude oil from offshore wells in Nigeria? How can government agencies and security forces, some of whom are culpable, work together to effectively address this issue once and for all?
Well, I mean, it really and truly, it's a political decision. What I mean by political decision is that it's politicians that have to make this decision. Now, the reason why they have to make this decision, you don't have to be a politician to know the reasons why the government, any government, has to make a decision to keep the environment safeguarded. Because one, it is our right, it's everybody's right by the Constitution, that the government is responsible to provide an environment that is livable, an environment where our people are safe. Now, if the government is unable to provide that, then the government has failed. Now, the government knows what to do. The Ministry of Environment should know what to do. If they don't know what to do, then I don't know why the Ministry of Environment exists. The Ministry of Petroleum is part of the people that should know what to do and should have the political will to do this. Now, when you catch any thief, if it is against the law what anybody is doing and you catch them, the law says that you should take them to court. And so if the government is unable to catch them, that's one thing. Like I said, in 2004, thereabout, some naval high-ranking naval officers were prosecuted, court-martialed even, and Admiral Bob Manuel, who is actually a brother of mine by blood, actually was hounded by this theft. And at the end of the day, he was the only person that was totally acquitted from that. So you can see that even just looking at it from that angle, the Niger Delta people pay a high price because he was not part of it. But at the end of the day, he retired from the Navy. I don't think that he would have wanted to retire at the time that he did. But I mean, they tried to drag his name through the mud. So basically, then what we're saying is that constantly the Niger Delta people, particularly we the people that do live in the creeks and in the swamps and the mangroves of this Delta region, we've paid a very, very heavy price for the oil and gas. And really, the government owes us a responsibility, the federal government and even the state governments, to an extent, owes us a responsibility to make sure that our creeks are not only safe for us to ply, but that our creeks are also livable for us, so that we are not driven out of the creeks because it's no longer livable. And I do know by some utterances when we were even in the national conference in 2014, where it was said that, well, if you Niger Delta people think that your land and your waters are polluted, we can relocate you out of the Niger Delta. Now, this is a very insensitive position to take when people are rightfully and justifiably highlighting and pointing out some of these things that are just not acceptable anywhere in the world. Look at the size of the ship.
Now, madam, let's just because of want of time, and I also want our viewers to have an understanding of the level of issues here. It's not just loss of revenue for the government when this people participate in crude oil theft, but it also harms the environment and the local communities. And that brings me to my question. Could you shed some light on the social and economic impact experienced by the people living in the Niger Delta due to this illicit activity? What is their day-to-day reality from all of this? I mean, crude oil, the discovery was meant to be a blessing for the people of the Niger Delta. We've seen monarchies in the Gulf. We've seen Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, how they've used this nature-given, God-given resources for the betterment of their people. Now, what's the present-day reality of the people in the Niger Delta?
Well, quite honestly, someone like me, I speak when I speak on these issues, I speak authoritatively. What I mean by that is this opportunity you've given me to share. Now, I grew up in a community called Abonima in Akugutoro local government area in Port Harcourt, in Rivers State. In that community where I grew up drinking from a well in my grandfather's compound. Now, that well still exists till today, but you can't drink the water from that well. It's polluted, but we drank from it, we bathe from it. Now, that applies to every other community that you can call at random that will drink from a well or have drunk from a well before. Now, when you when you fetch the water, you can actually see, depending on how you put it, you can actually see oil, the sizzling around on top of the water. Our people bathe with that water, they drink that water, and they wash their clothes with that water. They cook with that water. We eat a lot of sea fish. I mean, sea things. We eat ngolo, we eat isam, we eat oysters, mbe, and all those things. Some of them are so polluted that when you actually cook them, you can actually taste the crude oil. People have skin diseases, they have breathing problems because of the gas flaring, because of the cooking now of lately, the cooking of the oil. But before then, the burning of the oil by the oil companies, when these things catch fire. And mind you, most of the pipelines that are embedded in the mangroves and the swamps and the creeks of the Niger Delta were laid there in the 50s and in the 60s by the oil companies, and they have not changed any of them. So most of these things are actually caused by corrosion of the pipe, which is made of metal. Today they have better ones like in Saudi Arabia or wherever, but that is not our case. So the ecology is totally destroyed. The fauna and all that is totally destroyed. So when we're talking about our environment, people need to appreciate what we mean and look, if you destroy the environment of the Niger Delta region to the extent that it is destroyed, you're destroying the people. I'm telling you that the water I grew up drinking from, I can't drink from it unless I want to be sick. But there are people who have no choice but to drink from that water. And like, if you tell them don't drink from the water, it's a good advice. And they seem to understand it. But they now say to you, fine,
what's the alternative?
Have you brought for me? What water have you brought for me to drink? Because I take bottled water home when I'm going home, even to cook and to wash my, there's no point in even washing your clothes. You know, you take it back to Port Harcourt. But the point is, there are people in the creeks that just have no choice but to bathe in this contaminated water. They breathe the contaminated air. People die from diseases that we have never seen before when I was growing up. I have eczema on my on parts of my body, and that's as a direct result of my interaction, my own reaction from that. Some of us have asthma, is all part of it. People die from heart diseases.
Okay.
People have growths growing on them. I have a growth here.
Thank you so much for speaking ever so passionately about the issues in the Niger Delta. We hope the authorities listening will do something to change the reality of those people that come from the Niger Delta region and also bring this pollution to an end. Thank you, Madam Annkio Briggs, convener Niger Delta Self-Determination Movement, for your insight and your time today on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hey, this is where we wrap the conversation today on Politics HQ. Thank you so much for being a big company. I am Benga Aboroa. See you next time. Bye-bye.